I want to show you how we can find common denominators. Now, when we add or subtract fractions that have different denominators, meaning the number on the bottom of the fraction, so in this case the 2 and the 4 are the denominators, we can't add and subtract them when they have different denominators because we're talking about different sized pieces. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and find a denominator that both fractions can use by renaming these fractions. All right? So the question says, which two equations show a way to find the sum of 1/2 and 3/4? A key word in this question is sum. So when we're finding a sum, we're adding the two fractions together to get an answer. Okay? So we know we're going to add 1/2 and 3/4. We can't add them yet. The denominators are different. We have a denominator of 2 and a denominator of 4. Okay? Now, we have 4 answer choices to pick from, but let's go ahead and just make sense of making a common denominator for these fractions, okay? So if we have 1/2, I'm just going to go ahead and draw a number line. This is something that your child can do very easily on their paper. We have 0, we have 1, and exactly in between 0 and 1 we have 1/2. We're also looking at fourths, so I can break this number line between 0 and 1 into 4 equal parts. So this tick mark represents 1/4, we have 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. Okay? So you can see 1/2 is also equal to 4/4. Not 4/4, 2/4. 1/2 is equal to 2/4. Let's take a look at our fraction strips here. This represents 1/2. And we want to make it fourths, so we can go ahead and see that 2/4 is the same size as 1/2. So 2/4 is the same size as 1/2. Okay? So we'll rename 1/2 as 2/4, and then we have 3/4. The denominators are now the same. 2/4 and 3/4. Let me go ahead and make that look like a plus sign. Let's go ahead through our answer options. We don't actually have to solve the equation for the sum, but let's find an answer option that shows equivalent fractions 2/4 and 3/4, okay? Well, option A has 8ths. We'll skip that for now. It has 8ths. C has 6ths. D has halves. And then E has 4ths. Now let's see. 1/2 plus 3/4 is equal to 2/4 plus 3/4. 1/2 does equal 2/4, and 3/4 does equal 3/4. So that's going to be one of our answers, E. Now I'm going to go ahead and look. I need to select one more equation that shows a way to find 1/2 plus 3/4. Okay, the question asks me to select 2 equations that show a way to find the sum of 1/2 and 3/4. So let's go back to finding common denominators. I know 2 and 4 both have a multiple of 8. If I skip count by 2's, I'll get to 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2 times 4 is 8. If I skip count by 4's, I'll also get to 8. 4, 8. So 8 is a common denominator for 2 and 4. So let's go ahead and think about 1/2 becoming 8ths, okay? I'll show you this with multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So if we go ahead and take 1/2 and we want to make it 8ths, we can, because if we skip count by 2's, we will arrive at 8. 2 times what gives me 8? I know 2 times 4 gives me 8. So I'll multiply the denominator 2 by 4. And I also need to multiply my numerator by that same number, because we don't want to change what the fraction is worth. We just want to say it in a different way. Okay? So 1 times 4 is 4. 1/2 is also equal to 4/8. And we can actually prove that with our fraction bars, or fraction strips. We call them both. Here we have eighths. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8 is also equal to 1/2. Now let's go ahead and look at the 3/4 fraction. And we can make that into eighths. Remember we talked about if we skip count by 4s, we can get to 8. 4, 8. And 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So we'll multiply the denominator by 2 and the numerator by 2 because we want to keep the value the same. We just want to name it a little bit differently. Really, we're multiplying by 2 over 2, which is equal to 1 whole. And any number times 1 is itself. Okay? So 3 times 2 is 6. So we can say 3/4 is equal to 6/8. And I remember seeing option A and option B both have eighths. Let's go ahead and see which one makes sense. 1/8 plus 3/8. 1/2 and 1/8. 1/2? No, 1/2 equals 4/8. Let's look at option B. 1/2, 4/8. That one works. 3/4 plus 3/4 is equal to 6/8, and that one works too. So we can say that the equation 1/2 plus 3/4 is equal to 4/8 plus 6/8. That would be the second equation to show the sum of 1/2 and 3/4 using common denominators, okay?